right, everybody. Hello. This is Wesley Alexander, and I'm here with a good friend of mine. Also, someone who's a familiar face to our wonderful Star family, and that is Nicholas Driver. Hello, Nicholas. How are you today?
Hey Wesley, I'm doing all right. How about you?
I am awesome. Pollen's getting to me,
Oh yeah,
one eye again, but that's
very
okay.
relatable.
But we are just doing a follow up and seeing how everything is going with you currently, what all is going on. You let us know what you have going on right now in Huntsville.
Okay, well, as many of the folks know, if you follow me on my Facebook at Nicholas Driver, I've really gotten into storm chasing here of late, as that is something that I have really made a priority of mine to learn the ground level of things before I really climb back up into, staying in a studio and keeping folks safe from my safe place, pretty much. I'm more focusing on staying outdoors, enjoying what God has created for us to enjoy, but also bringing the safety to your TV pretty much. Instead of you having to look outside, I could be out there recording, showing you, hey, there's a tornado on the ground, because viewers actually take shelter more often if they actually see the tornado than not. So storm chasers are really helpful in that term, but also they are very helpful in ways like if we have really bad radar holes in some areas, they can be extremely helpful in that term to help report important information to the National Weather Service and news media and get people into their safe place more faster than a warning system would.
That's very
But
true.
absolutely. As far as that, we are really focusing on storm Pulse, Alabama within the next months. The severe weather really does kick up from March to April and May and the North Alabama area. So that is the next plan for me as I'm out in the field.
That is awesome. That's really awesome. Yeah. Now, in terms of the severe weather thus far, we got started off, a little rocky
Oh, yeah.
earlier this month, but most of those were bust situations, except for, the Kankakee tornado that happened. But no deaths with that either, which is really awesome. But it was a violent tornado that tore through there. But we've kind of had a couple of tornadoes in the Midwest already in March. And some of those areas got snow the next day, if not all the way the day prior. So, how do you think the rest of the season is shaping up, especially since going into April, it looks like the weather will continue to be quiet?
So as of right now, I'm really kind of bullseyeing my eye on the Midwest and even the Central Plains, as that's where a lot of the severe weather has been focused since the beginning of 2026. And I do feel with the type of pattern that we're in, Dixie is going to get a little bit of break. Now that doesn't mean we're not going to see any tornadoes this year. We're absolutely going to have, we've already seen a couple of them, beginning this year, but overall, our severe weather patterns are going to be a little bit more messy, in my opinion, and aren't going to be the greatest. But that definitely doesn't mean you should let your guard down. You absolutely should always stay, weather aware, especially if you're in the south or the northeast, no matter where you are, because tornadoes can happen any time of the year, any time of the day, any time of your, any time of the minute that we speak here. So, but again, the Midwest, Mississippi Valley, going into the Central Plains. That's really where my bullseye is for this year. We're going into the first week of April. We're actually going to see a little bit of an uptick of severe weather if our meteorologists haven't already been talking about it. And as far as that, it's just going to continue into May, and we'll have to really keep an eye on things.
Definitely, definitely. But the storm chasing part is really interesting. I tell a lot of people that some of us are not made for storm
Oh
chasing.
yeah.
I'm not one of them. I don't want to be caught out there in that. But there are a lot of people who I'm realizing who would rather do the storm chasing part rather than working on the federal level or working in the studio, on the broadcast level. Why do you think that is?
That has to do with the excitement that storm chasing can give you, but also experiencing the beauty of storms. Yes, storms can be very dangerous, very deadly in the second, but it also gives you peace when you're watching, in my opinion, anyways. And storm chasers can highly relate in some areas. But watching a tornado go across an open field without damaging anything, maybe a couple trees, as long as it's out in the open field, not hurting anybody, that's peaceful to us, and that'll continue to always be peaceful. But something is just so fascinating about storm chasing and being out there. I'm one, as many storm chasers who grew up on Twister, Into the Storm, and the documentary series from Reed Timmer and Sean Casey, and all of them. I grew up on those documentary seasons, as well as the Weather Channel, as we all know today, with those older stuff that they used to show. And that's pretty much what shaped me. I've known since I was a little kid that I've always wanted to be a storm chaser. I didn't really know that I was going to get into the broadcasting side of things until earlier in 2023. I really actually shot for that. But something about being in front of a gust front, or in front of a beautiful shelf cloud or something like that, or being able to watch hail fall out of the sky or lightning stream across the sky, it's just a very calming thing that can kind of ground you to the earth.
Wow. Now, I used to, and one thing about me, many people know when it comes down to weather, even my family, what I typically would do, especially since I live in Texas, thunderstorms, something pretty common here in the spring months. But we would typically go outside and I'd look up. I remember many times where we were under warnings, rather severe, or tornado, and I just go outside and look. If I don't see nothing, we'll just come back in here like nothing's going on and sit down on the couch. So I understand looking up and trying to look for signs of things. Yeah, it's really awesome to see it. And sometimes we watch the clouds just move and we say, whatever, and come back and sit down again. So I understand the calming ambience of that. But the broadcasting side, anything really that you think should be changed in the broadcasting side, especially with a lot of things that we have ongoing right now? What do you think some type of innovation should be on the broadcasting side?
So, as you were saying, there's a huge amount of momentum change that's going on with the news media broadcasting side of things, where we're learning different things and how people react to warnings. And we have a such thing called the crying wolf effect, or something in that category, which is something that we're slowly working on in the meteorological community, as well as the sciological community. Is like, okay, how can we get people to actually listen to this warning instead of kind of brushing it off, as you mentioned earlier? You get a tornado warning, you go outside, oh, it's blue skies. They must have got, it must be a false call. Typically, that just means, hey, there's a storm actually approaching. The fact that you have blue skies is extremely concerning, because you're just unaware of that, and that
Mhm.
primes the environment ahead of that. But most of people, like myself, when I was younger, we didn't know that. You know,
Right.
the news media never really did explain that part. And most of the times, we're busy with life. We're working. We're going to school. Or we're out in the garden trying to plant, whatever we're doing. We're not paying attention to the weather unless it's, very important to us. Which, hear me out. The weather is extremely important to us on a daily basis.
Mhm.
We want to know
Right,
if it's
right.
going to be sunny or stormy. But a lot of people just they watch it in the morning. They know, okay, yeah, severe weather's going on. That's the last time they watched it. So, I personally, in my opinion, with everything that you're working on with Star, I think it's wonderful because this gives weather forecasting, news media, it gives it at the palm of your hand with your phone and everything like that, instead of, okay, let's turn on the TV. Nobody has time to watch TV anymore with the demand of the world. So with these phones that we have in our hands all the time, all you got to do is one click, go to that website, um, that your broadcast media is at, and there you go. That's the larger change that I'm looking forward to seeing in the community, which it's happening rather fast with everybody. Everybody's going that route.
Very true.
um,
Very true.
I'm also looking forward to seeing better warnings and more understandable forecasts. Nothing on the major side where people are like, what is this meteorologist even talking about? we're looking for very accurate forecasts, but also very understandable for the general public.
That is that is a good point because not a lot of people understand a lot of those terms and a lot of the other things that are typically happening in the weather community. Now, some of us do, but the general consensus is you have to find a way, and that's the job of the broadcasting side, to dumb it down. Not saying it in a derogatory way, but dumb it down for people to understand. Okay, this is what I need. This is what I need to do, and that's why calm. Like we just did the interview with Gary a while ago, and people with storm anxiety,
Oh yeah.
we have to keep them calm so they know, all right, when there's thunderstorm or the threat of strong to severe storms and tornadoes, hail, or even winter weather. Some people have winter weather anxiety. And I most definitely know a lot of people here in Texas post the 2021 winter storm disaster do have winter storm anxiety now as well. So you have to prepare people for the cold and for the severe. Definitely. It's interesting, really interesting.
With
All
that
right.
said, on the just I'm going to touch base on the storm anxiety part of it too.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see a documentary side of how there's a lot of meteorologists today that are the same as me and you. They used to have storm anxiety. Maybe they still do a little bit. Um, for example, I'm trying to think of one of the Weather Channel storm chasers or original storm chasers. I forget his name, but he went through the 2013 El Reno, storm chase tornado outbreak
Mike
where,
Betts.
yeah, Mike Bettis, he went through that and he never did storm chase again because that gave him so much storm anxiety or that type of anxiety that he stayed in the studio. I don't even blame him. So we still have meteorologists that still preferably have storm anxiety, but are still doing what they love at the same time. What I would love to see is a documentary, showing each side of that and how you can overcome that anxiety, which can help get you to a safe place in time without panicking and just help you not be stressed out and be more prepared than not.
And you know what's sad? The main reason why Bettis stopped doing it is because remember, they almost died in
Very much.
that because their car got crushed. And remember, some of our favorite storm chasers, me and you were talking before we did the interview, how we grew up on watching storm chasers on Discovery. But one of our favorite storm chasers, I have to remember the name of the team, but they
And
all
some more
died. Yeah,
mistakes. Yeah.
there we go. They all died in El Reno. So, and that was probably that lesson there is probably a lesson that many storm chasers still talk about. How when a tornado is moving not in its typical direction, how you get caught up by doing some reckless things and you
Absolutely.
could lose your life. But thankfully, Bettis did not die, but that stopped him from storm chasing. He hasn't done any chasing since 2013, and here we
Yep.
are, 13. Can you believe that? 13
13
years
years
later.
ago. Yep. It's
And
honestly intense. And just there's a lot of nostalgia that comes from that event and everything because I, as a little kid, I was really little at that time. I remember seeing it on the TV, just barely, but I remember seeing it come up on the Weather Channel, as the headlines, and that I didn't know yet of what had occurred that day. But the fact that that had occurred 13 years ago is pretty crazy, really and honestly.
yeah, time flies when you're having a lot of fun.
Oh
But
yeah.
how about you tell us about your new weather venture there out of Tanner, Alabama?
So Storm Pulse, Alabama, that's the newest thing that I'm working on. As far as everything, this is a smaller company. Eventually, it's going to be a company. Right now, it's not really anything, you know, on paper. It's more of just a social media website. But it is supposed to be based on the Lord, fully and just based on faith with Jesus and everything. That's my greatest, that's where I lay my faith at. That's where, that's what I believe in. And I know some people kind of disagree with certain things when it comes to that. But that's where I want to take my company, no matter what somebody says about it. Um, but I'm also looking for very accurate weather forecasts that are understandable. As I mentioned earlier, there's no crying wolf effect. There's no in Oz with the forecaster. I want the forecast to be as professional as possible, but also as relatable as like me and you are talking right now. There's
Mhm.
no there's no too over professional. It's more like, okay, let's keep this conversation at a level that we're keeping it at now. That's what I'm looking forward to doing with Storm Pulse Alabama, bringing quick, relatable forecast. Last year we had a great run with Storm Pulse, or excuse me, Star Nine Alabama. I think I said that ahead of Storm Pulse Alabama, but that's okay. But we had a great time with Star Nine Alabama last year during the multiple tornado outbreaks and severe weather outbreaks that we had. Many people tuned in and appreciated that work. And that's something that I continue to look forward to seeing because I'm here to serve my community. I'm not here to play around. I'm not here for the attention, for the popularity. I'm here to serve my community and my community only. Um, I don't really look forward to serving anywhere else out of North Alabama because this is my home and this is my hometown pretty much. As far as storm chasing goes, again, this storm chasing is something that's going to last till the end of my lifetime because I do plan to be out in the field as much as possible. That my biggest plan is to work on some movies, which that is something that has been kept on the very low. But I'm working on some storm documentaries currently, and I didn't say that. Nobody heard me say that there, but that's one thing that I'm currently working on is storm documentaries and stuff. It is present on YouTube, and it's called I think it's called Day One, uh, or at least the first season of it is Day One. So it's going into the behind scenes that you don't normally see with storm chasers, like the stressful environment. Because nowadays you see, okay, cool, they get a tornado immediately, but that's not how it usually goes. There's a lot of driving. There's a lot of issues in between it. Um, there's a lot of safety concerns, especially with the amount of teenagers and young adults and even other people that are getting out on the roads now. We've been having multiple accidents concerning storm chasers than we have in a long time. So that's what that documentary is really going to touch on, and I'm pretty excited to be a part of it. Um, but yeah, that's really the main focus. Start, bringing home footage so you don't have to be out there in the field yourself for those who have storm anxiety.
That's awesome, and we will look forward to day one, which I'm sure is named that based on the SPC outlooks,
Yep.
right?
And considering that it is, I think it's going to be the very starting of the movie. So it's day one, as in the very starting of the movie.
Oh, okay. Wow. That is awesome. Look at you coming
Oh, yeah.
on. That's awesome. That's awesome. So, based on this stuff, we've talked about your upcoming endeavors. We've talked about things you'd like to see change. We've talked about and touched on storm anxiety. We talked about your faith based, and as a faith based person, I do completely love that when people want to bring in their faith while also still doing what they love, because we're always supposed to do things to the glory of God at the end of the day, right?
Absolutely.
Um, so that is really, really awesome stuff. But on top of this stuff, what more do you see yourself doing in the future?
Honestly, it is mainly focused on serving my community. I do plan to help serve in several churches eventually and grow my faith in the Lord. So, serving my community even away from meteorology. I currently have been really focused on culinary, which is like cooking food. I found a pretty good hobby in that, besides meteorology. I enjoy cooking food. I enjoy working on cars. So just doing things to keep myself busy on the off season and, really getting myself ready for college, number one, and so far, so forth. But I'm just hoping to help with scientific research in the near future. There's a lot of stuff that we already know about, but there's also a lot of stuff that we are still learning about. So it would be awesome to assist in specific scientific research when it comes to meteorology, tornadoes, how tornadoes form, so on and so forth, and just to be able to assist with that and know that okay, we're bringing safety to the latter half of the world.
And you know what? That'll take you big places at the end of the
Absolutely.
day. We all have our purpose, and his is to be a wonderful scientist. Well, we are so excited to have called up and have talked with Nicholas about weather things right here on Star 13 Texas. As you know, I'll keep you updated on any bad weather around here, but so glad to catch up with our wonderful old friend, former member, a part of the Star Squad. So thank you, Nicholas.